and I just came here in '83, and it wasn't long after that Vancouver celebrated its 100th birthday. And I remember sitting out on at Queen Elizabeth Park and looking at all the city, and just thinking to myself, only 100 years, 100 years. That's not very long at all. And all this stuff was created in 100 years, you know. So just thinking about how it was like for the people, you know, before contact, and how the paradise and the food security, you know, listening, hearing about Chief Dan George hunting in at English Bay, hunting for deer at English Bay. So it's just thinking about that and thinking about the tables were set when the tide was out. And so, you know, just important to remember and to acknowledge the people whose territory that you're living on. And so I want to acknowledge the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. And you know, the lands and the trails, thinking about the trails, like the Granville Street was a trail, Kingsway was a trail. Just thinking about all those things and how they were so connected. So I really appreciate all of you being here today and the work that you're doing. Thank you, Nyong'o, for all of the work that you're doing with our children and our youth, that you're taking a lead to help them and secure their future. So really thank you, and remember that when our people were making decisions were made for 7 generations into the future. So thinking about that and how, you know, today we often make generations for 1 or 2 years or whatever our term is. So just thinking about that. So I want to thank you for inviting me to welcome everyone and to acknowledge the territory. Nyong'o. Thank you.
Thank you so much for getting us started in a good way. It's wonderful to be reminded of these thoroughfares, these paved roads that were once paved with footsteps as people made their way through the territory. So thank you so much, and for acknowledging and bringing us all together. I hope you're able to join us for this afternoon, Diana, and stay and feel welcome. Thank you. I do want to let people know that, just sort of so you know what's happening technically, we're set up in webinar mode. And so you're going to see certain faces spotlighted as we go. So it's not like a usual Zoom call where sort of everybody shows up all the time. So you're going to see certain voices spotlighted at different times. It's a little bit disorienting to get used to, but it's a webinar mode, and it'll just keep it a little bit easier for Barbara, the woman tucked away behind the scenes managing things, to keep track of all of us and make sure that people are able to stay together and go forward. So I would like to acknowledge all of the work that's gone into organizing this event for First Call. It always takes a village of humans, staff, steering committees. I'd like to thank, of course, Adrian, the people who are appearing on your screen. I'd like to say people's names out loud: Adrian, Alicia, Anastasia, Barb, and the board of directors. The board of directors, of course, Dylan Falconer, Gaida Tude, Jim Staten, Cheryl Mixon, Emily Gaulick, Heather Lynch, Catherine Moore, and Sean Bays. If I have mispronounced anyone's name, please accept my apology. And I hope that I didn't do a terrible job with any of you. The intention is to acknowledge each of you for all of the contributions that you've made, as we like to do with all of the people who do this good work day in, day out, largely unseen across the province, as healthcare and supports are being provided for children and youth across BC. Our sponsors, what on earth would happen with these small little organizations without the sponsors? Here they are: Van City, the Community and Living Wage Employer sponsors. You know, these folks have been at the forefront of this change, and I want to acknowledge that deeply. That's Scout, the dog, downstairs doing her thing. Please forgive her too. Ethos Career Management Group, Plea Community Services, and the First Credit Union. Thank you all so very much for making today possible. We appreciate you. We've got some very, very important guests with us this afternoon, some dignitaries that I will acknowledge by name towards the end of our program. So I would like to sort of put that together, but I'd be remiss if I held back for one more second before introducing Adrian Montani. Adrian is the executive director, and she's going to talk about First Call's achievements this year. And none of those achievements would be possible at all without the support of all of you. So Adrian, I'm going to turn the stage to you, and thank you so much for the invitation to be a small part of this event once again this year.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for that intro. And thank you for being here. Thanks to everyone else for being here. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, I'm gonna, so hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today, for joining us, for supporting our work together. Oh, my video stopped.
Yes, it was actually sent 5 times. So I'm not sure why you wouldn't get it, but I've sent it to you again.
Alicia, you're on, can you, oh yeah, you need to mute yourself. Anyway, sorry. Sorry, the joys of being on Zoom. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'll start again. For supporting our work together and for taking time to honor Catherine Ludgate, who is a very special friend of First Call today, and to share some inspiration today from our special guest, Monique Grace Smith. I'm also calling in from the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people as we meet again in this virtual space instead of in person as we'd like to, but we do look forward to seeing you in person in future years. Despite the challenges of this year, we have acted on our shared commitment to standing up for children, youth, and families through our advocacy in support of the 4 keys to success. And I can show the slide. Thank you. So these are, as you see listed here, these are the way we ground our work and shape and guide our advocacy and our commitments to guide to children, youth, and families to wellness. As always, it's the commitment and the knowledge of our community partners, supporters, some of you on the call today, from across many sectors, regions of the province, and disciplines that make this work possible. So this is a group effort. Next slide, please. Our commitment to acting on the evidence of the importance of the early years, which is the first key to success, those early years in a child's life. This motivates our advocacy work through, and the way we do that is through our early childhood development roundtable, where we work with early childhood experts from around the province to advocate for things like healthy babies, healthy pregnancies, high quality, affordable, inclusive childcare system that we're working, hopefully built on the 10-a-day childcare plan, early supports for children with support needs, working with the Kids Can't Wait group of our partners who are looking at those children's needs and how to improve their access to services and supports. And just generally that there should be more free local supports for all families raising young children, because we know this is such an important part of their life. Next slide, please. And the second key to success is supporting youth in transitions. And in the past year, we've spent quite a bit of time focusing through our Fostering Change program, mobilizing and supporting youth from care and their allies to advocate for the full complement of transition supports that youth who turn 19 when they turn 19 and age out of government care that they deserve and need. Emergency measures during the pandemic, such as extending housing placements and agreements past age 19 and reducing barriers to support programs, really helped illustrate what government can do quickly to prevent youth aging out into homelessness, for instance, if they want to. So we learned some from that. In response to young people's advocacy in this year's provincial budget, we finally saw some important policy changes and investments promised to better support these youth as they age out of care. And we will be working with Youth from Care and many community partners to monitor the impact and the adequacy of these commitments. So work isn't done, but we've made some progress there. Next slide, please. The third key to success is increased economic equality. We know the impacts of increasing economic inequality are bad on child health and well-being, and very powerful negative impacts, and that high rates of child poverty threaten to have long-term negative effects on children's health in BC. So our most recent child poverty report card documents, again, we do this every year, the scope of the problem, and it poses 26 recommendations for policy solutions. The report card is a joint project with Spark BC, wonderful partner, and national partners through Campaign 2000, and serves as a year-round tool for raising public awareness and decision makers awareness, and to mobilize support for the recommendations that are the policy changes we'd like to see that are recommended in the report. This work has been supported financially by Vancouver Coastal Health, the Vancouver Foundation, and many of our union partners as well. Getting employers to pay living wages is one of the key solutions to child poverty in BC and across the country, because most poor children live in families poor children live in families where parents are in the workforce. So the Living Wage for Families program has made steady progress. You see some of the metrics here, despite the pandemic, with over 380 employers now certified and more than 1,700 employees benefiting from wage increases thanks to these certifications. 17 public bodies, big places, like you can see some of them there, cities and school boards and stuff, and some First Nations have made the commitment to pay living wages that are calculated each year for various regions of the province with the help of the BC Office of the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. We appreciate their partnership in this, and we're grateful for the financial support for this program from Van City, from Vancouver Foundation, and again, several of our Labour partners. We also have 2 research projects related to child poverty underway. One is funded by the Law Foundation, and it's looking into how children's right to housing is undermined and challenged in the current context. The second one is our Making Ends Meet participatory action research project with families who are already experienced, both the researchers and the people they'll be talking to, gathering information from who have experience with low wage poverty. And this is also funded by the Vancouver Foundation. We're grateful for that support. Next slide, please. And then the fourth one, Safe and Caring Communities, covers a lot of ground. I've just highlighted a couple of things here. Our work on improving child labor standards and young workers' safety in the workplace moved forward this year as government brought in new regulations under the Employment Standards Act, defining light work for 14 and 15-year-olds and exclusions of hazardous work. And I know they're now opening a consultation and working on defining hazardous workplace or exclusions for 16 to 18-year-olds as well. We're happy to see that work move forward. We remain committed to the advocacy for repeal of Section 43 of the Criminal Code, which allows a defense in law of physical punishment of children. This call, this is a violation of children's rights, and it's a call to action to eliminate this section of the Criminal Code in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action and reminders regularly from the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child. So this remains an important goal of ours. Next slide, please. Just a quick look at one of the kinds of things we do, because we happen to be in, again, an election year for municipal elections this year. So whether it's federal or provincial or local elections, we do think this is just an example of a tool, the kind of tool we produce that is for advocates and interested voters to use during elections to educate both candidates who may or may not get elected, but it's still good to educate them, and the public about the importance of upholding the rights of children and youth by all levels of government. So there's a shareable here advocating for increased funding for prevention, education, early intervention, and dedicated service enforcement and dedicated services for sex trafficked minors, a serious problem in our province. And the second is calling for the repeal of Section 43, which I just mentioned. And also we put in there that we're asking, this is at the federal level, for a National Children's Commissioner, again, a longstanding demand of federal governments, various ones. And we'll be doing a municipal election toolkit later this summer. Next slide, please. So just to wrap up, we know that advocacy works, and we know that over the last many years, our sustained advocacy for child and youth rights has produced real results for children and youth and families in BC, which goes from a legislated poverty reduction plan that's finally in place, to improved labor standards I've mentioned, to eliminating clawbacks of benefit payments like child support and maternity leave payments from income assistance benefits, to BC's enhanced child benefit, the child opportunity benefit that finally changed, and significant investments in childcare and building a childcare system, and now better supports, we hope, for youth leaving care. So there's just some of the things, but our persistent, united voice for children and youth has really made a difference. And so thank you so much for being part of that. I also want to say thanks to the leadership and say that thanks to the leadership and courage of Indigenous communities and organizations, that we know that efforts to decolonize services and institutions and secure greater investments in the rights and the health and the well-being of Indigenous children and youth and families and communities in BC is underway. So we're happy to support that work and take leadership from those communities. There's always more to do. And we look forward to working with all of you and all of our partners to achieve even more advocacy wins, as we call them, for BC's children and youth in the coming months and years. And thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Adrian. That's quite the win list that you describe. And I also want to just acknowledge that not only is all this work being done for children and youth and families, but there's sort of bigger picture work too that First Call kind of quietly does, this ongoing commitment to anti-racism, Indigenous rights, climate justice, and so many of these big, broad issues that come up in our lives and across our provinces and show up in individual lives in different ways. And First Call is really, and the members of all of these organizations have really come together to advocate and collectively have pushed the dial on a number of issues, right down to logging practice in certain communities. So that additional layer of support that's happening all the time is really a powerful part of this group of people who come together under the umbrella of First Call. So congratulations on all of that good work as well. This afternoon, one of the most important tasks that we have is to honor Catherine Ludgate. Catherine is First Call's champion of child and youth rights. She wins our award this year. Just seeing her face and just taking a moment, look at that smile and all of the work that went on behind that smile. We are so fortunate today to have three people who knew Catherine very well and are going to speak about her contributions today. Tamara Vrooman, Jonathan Fowley, and Adrian, of course. So we first of all have a short video from Tamara.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tamara Vrooman. I'm the president and CEO of YVR. I'm coming to you today from my office here on Sea Island, which is on the traditional territory of the Musqueam people. YVR has a deep and lasting relationship with Musqueam, and I'd like to take a moment to give my thanks to elders past and present. And we're here to celebrate the remarkable work of Catherine Ludgate. And it's absolutely fantastic that First Call has chosen to honor her posthumously through this award. You know, Catherine was a tireless advocate for children and family, their rights, for anti-poverty moves, both from government, in community, and with business. I learned so much from working with Catherine through the Living Wage campaign, through the work that she did when she was seconded to First Call, a person that was more committed to using the tools of finance and advocacy in service for making children and families' lives better, particularly those of single parents, was truly second to none. Thank you so much to the First Call community for recognizing Catherine this way. I learned so much from her in my career and my time as CEO of Van City, and I take those learnings forward even now as we work to become a living wage employer here at YVR.
Tamara, thank you so much for those beautiful, beautiful words. We now have Jonathan Fowley. Jonathan worked with Catherine at Van City. Jonathan leads Van City's External Relations and Impact Strategy Division. That's the group that actually oversees Van City's key strategies toward building a clean and fair world. And Jonathan joins us now. Hi there.
Hi, Catherine, and thank you very much. I too want to acknowledge that I'm coming from the lands of the Coast Salish people, represented today by the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, and pay my respects before I begin my comments. I also want to acknowledge that Catherine's parents, Anne and John, are here in this virtual gathering with us, along with her sister Jane and very good friend Donna Barker. I'm honored to join you today, along with so many of Catherine's friends, confidants, comrades, in celebrating the incredible, fearless Catherine Ludgate. A true social justice warrior, Catherine was a champion for those who are so often unseen and unheard. In every room, at every table, Catherine always asked, who is not here, whose voice is not being heard? She challenged conventions, systems, and cared little for hierarchy. She was compassionate, hardworking, and yes, Catherine Ludgate was stubborn. Van City is assembling a book to honor Catherine's legacy, and it is filled with some of the most touching tributes. Among my favorite observations was that the only language Catherine ever knew was that of the unvarnished truth. I felt this in every exchange we ever had. She was passionate, energetic, and among her many attributes, I loved most her lack of focus. Sow 1,000 seeds and see what blossoms, she would so often tell me. Well, let's be honest, she would kind of sing it in that way that only Catherine could. One that was equal parts humility and a true understanding that we were all better off when we just let Catherine be Catherine. To be honest, my first experience of Catherine was fear. She was that good, that wise, and that dedicated to her work. But before long, fear melted into respect, and then admiration, and then camaraderie. As so many of you know, Catherine's fierce commitment to economic inclusion pushed Van City in tremendous ways and led to a long list of innovations that can be traced back to her vision for a more just and inclusive economy. Through Catherine's leadership, Van City became a living wage employer, and we're committed to continuing to fight for a living wage for all, alongside many of you here today. And let us do that in honoring the legacy of Catherine. As chairperson of BC's Poverty Reduction Advisory Committee and an advisory committee member to the Federal Poverty Reduction Strategy, Catherine made a difference provincially, and she made a difference nationally. She was a driving force behind establishing the Van City Banking Centre at the ISS of BC, Vancouver's Welcome Centre. When it opened in June 2016, it was the first on-site banking centre in a Canadian immigrant serving agency. Catherine's activism on anti-poverty amplified Van City's impact and continues to resonate widely across our communities. A prime example of this is Catherine's tireless work and support for the Living Wage campaign. In that, she recognized an opportunity to touch thousands of lives throughout her community. She saw an urgent responsibility to fight a system that is far too comfortable having working people live in poverty. The last time I saw Catherine, it was for a beer on Commercial Drive. She was struggling with an illness that was taking her from her work, the work that she so dearly loved. She was pushing me to keep going, to continue the fight, to do more. And so in that spirit, I want to end with the words of my pal. It comes from a draft of her now published book chapter on the living wage, which she ended with a call to action. One, I think she'd be just fine with me leaving with you today as we give her this award. It goes, and these are her words as follows. It won't be until we bring in large employers and require those employers to address their contracted staff that we realize the rallying cry and promise of the Living Wage campaign. Work should lift you out of poverty, not keep you there. At every turn, even in celebration of great achievements, Catherine pushed us all to keep going. Thank you, Catherine, for all you've done. You led a life of true service, and we are all better off with the many seeds you sowed and then tended into blossoming flowers.
Jonathan, what a beautiful way to remember and call people to action to continue this important work. Thank you so much for that tribute to Catherine Ludgate. And I'm now going to turn to Adrian again. And Adrian is going to sort of put together in words the meaning of this acknowledgement and award and give you some information about how you can participate in ongoing conversations about Catherine. Adrian.
Thank you, Catherine. My internet connection is unstable, it just said, so I hope that goes away. First began working with Catherine on living wages in particular for families over a decade ago. And as others have noted, child poverty, as I noted earlier, child poverty is for working children in working families is one of the biggest issues. And therefore, this is one of the biggest solutions because a lot of families are holding down 2 jobs and still not making a living wage or not getting out of poverty. So Catherine definitely understood the struggles of families living in poverty and knew that when parents earn a living wage, the cycle of family poverty can be broken and the lifelong ill health effects of growing up in poverty can be avoided, that prevention focus. While she used her vast and formidable skills and knowledge to work on many poverty reduction initiatives, as Jonathan and others have mentioned, her leadership and commitment to building a living wage movement in BC was amazing. When she was seconded for a time to our office, she proved to be one of the most passionate and effective spokespeople for living wages. for families both in BC and nationally. She played a huge role there as well. She was keen and strategic and knew that resilient change required buy-in from both employers and from policymakers and required relentless advocacy. And Catherine was certainly relentless in the best way. Catherine also possessed a unique understanding of the power of institutional change and was part of making that happen, and the power of institutional leadership to alleviate child poverty. As those of you who knew Catherine will know, she had a great sense of humor. She loved good food and drink. She did not suffer fools gladly. And yet she gave her time generously to so many committees and projects and people, including myself. I was very grateful for my time with Catherine. I learned so much from her. I had the privilege of serving on the Minister's Poverty Reduction Advisory Council with Catherine, where I observed her patient leadership, her grace and her warmth with all committee members, and her hard work as chair of the committee, making sure things happened. And that was, we were not wasting our time. Her expertise and leadership were in high demand. And as has been previously mentioned, she served on the City of Vancouver's Poverty Action Group, the National Living Wage Community of Practice, First Call's own advisory, Living Wage Advisory Committee, the Federal Poverty Reduction Council and Advisory Committee. And so she was everywhere because people really wanted her expertise, and she gave generously of her time. And still, as Jonathan mentioned, in her spare time, she wrote a whole chapter to a book detailing the genesis of the living wage, the history of living wage in BC for the book that's in the chat now, I know. Catherine was an invaluable partner to First Call, this Living Wage for Families BC program, and more broadly to end the project of ending child poverty and family poverty. We're honored to have worked with Catherine and benefited from her smart and insightful troublemaking, as she probably would call it. And we can think of no better recipient for this year's Champion of Child and Youth Rights Award than her. And we're sorry it must be awarded posthumously, and we miss her greatly. Thank you. And I wanted to show your family and stuff. This is what we'll be sending you, but I wanted people to see the plaque that we'll be giving to her with the award. Thank you.
I can't start my video, so if somebody could, there we go. Now I can start it. All righty. Thank you so much. What beautiful words. I didn't know Catherine personally, but interacted with her many, many, many times over the years. And she was always just so quick-witted and so completely intentional and determined to make the change that was necessary in the world. So I know her family members are with us today, and I'm just thinking of you as you hear these beautiful words being spoken about your precious daughter. And I just want to acknowledge this loss for this whole community, and point folks to the chat where information is made available there. If people want to make contributions to this book that's being created, please do so. We want to make sure that as many people's voices are represented there as possible, so that this is a wonderful recognition and remembrance, and will become a real treasure in the hands of the family and loved ones of Catherine Ludgate, pardon me. All right, it's now time to introduce today's keynote speaker. And we are lucky, lucky souls to have the opportunity to meet her indeed. Monique Grace Smith is a proud mother of teenage twins, an award-winning best-selling author. She is a sought-after consultant. Her recent novel is called Tilly and the Crazy Eights, and it was longlisted for Canada Reads 2021. This gal is someone who knows how to stay busy. She's got 7 books, ranging for readers from right across the lifespan. Coming this fall, she has another YA novel coming out. She's an award-winning and best-selling author, and she does do all kinds of speaking here, there, and everywhere. The latest book, Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, is being illustrated by Nicole Neidhart. And turning this into a particular volume is going to be something. I know that a lot of people are going to be watching for this, Monique. So very excited to see what you're able to come up with. Monique's books are used to share wisdom and knowledge and hope and the important teachings that love is medicine. All we have is each other. How do we reach for each other and come together? Monique is Cree, Lakota, and Scottish. She's been sober and involved in her healing journey for the last 3 decades. She's very well known for her beautiful, powerful storytelling, the spirit of generosity she carries and shares, and her focus on resilience. I'm really delighted personally to welcome you to this event that's so important in British Columbia. Monique, thank you so much for saying yes to First Call.
My pleasure. Thank you. Tansi Doti Mak, Mitanina Naskamon. I'm absolutely thrilled to be with you this afternoon, and I offer much thanksgiving to the Lekwungen speaking and the Sanchothan speaking people whose territory I live and raise my family on and write books on, and really in many ways thrive on. And I'm very grateful for those who have been the caretakers and the stewards for generations, and those little ones in early years programs and in our schools who will be the caretakers and the stewards of the land and the water and the air in the future. And many already are. Thank you to Diana Day for laying down the beautiful medicine for us to start our day today. And also much love and care and grace to Catherine's family who's joining us today. May you be watched over, guided, and protected, and may you be kept safe from in and out of harm, and may you feel the love of today like a blanket around you for today and your days forward. As was said, my English name is Monique, and my traditional name is Mistikwashkikos, which means little drum. And about 28 years ago, no, maybe actually, I'm trying to figure out all my dates because just a couple of days ago, I realized it was my 31st sobriety birthday, and I didn't even realize it. It's kind of, I think, part of what's happened with COVID. It's like these 2 years are kind of a ball in amongst our life. And in there, it's like, what else has happened? So I would say over 31 years ago now, I was working in Kamloops as a psychiatric nurse on the acute psych unit. And I wanted more ways to contribute. So I applied to UVic and to the School of Social Work program. And part of what I had to do was write a personal statement. And that got accepted and my grades. So I came down for an interview. And when I walked into the room, there was this long table and there was 5 women sitting behind it. And I had never been in a panel interview before. I was like, but it was like this force pushed me into my interview. I went through my interview, and as I was about to leave, I had my hand on the door. And one of those women said, I look forward to reading your book one day. At that point, I most definitely did not think she was speaking to me because I was 6 months sober and I hadn't graduated from high school. My drinking and other forms of self-harm really had impacted me in school. So had Algebra 11. But I went back and I got my grade 12 and I went to nursing school, but I still had a lot of self-limiting beliefs. So I kept opening that door. And she said, wait, Monique, I'm talking to you. I look forward to reading your book one day. Well, I got out of that room as fast as I could, ran to my car. At the time, I had a little fire yellow 1976 Toyota Corolla. And I was covered in goosebumps and my chest was just pounding. Because what she had done was one of our old Nihawe and one of our old Cree teachings. And many nations have these similar teachings. And that is that you speak the future for somebody. And if that future that you're speaking is in alignment with the gifts they've been blessed with, all kinds of things come into play to support that individual to use their gifts to contribute to the wellness of the world. It was like something woke up in me that day that had been dormant. And it took another 20 years for me to do anything with it. And all through those years, I kept getting messages. You know how I get pebbles and rocks and boulders and bricks. I wasn't really listening. And then one day I was in Toronto for work, and I'd gone for a massage and my face was in that donut. And about halfway through, the room got really warm, like a Chinook came in. And then I started to hear them, the cones of a jingle dancer, all 365 of them in the room. And then I heard the whoosh, whoosh of an eagle fan. So I opened my eyes in that donut, and ancestors started to pop their heads underneath, and they're like, write the book. We've been telling you to write the book. And they had been, those were the messages over all the years. And so I left there thinking, what would I write about? And you know, the questions we ask ourselves are so important. And so that question, what would I write about? The answers started to come. And I knew some of it was my own story, but also a story that would help non-Indigenous people in Canada understand the truth of the history of this place. And I knew it needed to be a gentle door opener, because as I was writing it, I was thinking of people who were kind of in their 50s, 60s, maybe 70s, who really had not learned the truth. And the truth is, this generation that's in school is the first generation learning the truth. And to me, that's so beautiful. Not beautiful that it's taken this long, but that we've made that change. And in there, there's so much hope and possibility for our common humanity. And so I started to write, and I wrote quite a bit for 6 months. And then life got busy. Our twins were little, and yeah, life got busy. And I stopped. And about a month after that, I got sick. And I had a tumor in my lung, and I had to have that tumor and half of my lung removed. And I lied in the hospital bed recovering, and then at home. And you know how I said we get pebbles and rocks and boulders and bricks. If we don't listen to the bricks, the whole brick wall comes down. And that's what happened to me, was the whole brick wall came down. And I knew that if I didn't listen to the message, I might not get another chance. So as a family, we made big decisions about how we would bring in our finances so I wouldn't have to work. I resigned from my role at Roots of Empathy and Seeds of Empathy, which was a very, very difficult decision. We sold our car. We did everything so that I could write. I released a self-published book. Remember how I said when we are in alignment, all kinds of things unfold. One day I was giving a talk at a church here in Victoria. And after I was done, a woman said, so what's next for you with your book? And I said, I don't know. I was listening to the messages, and I'm not a writer. I didn't go to school to write. I was just listening, and now I'm done. And she said, oh, well, I have this neighbor who does something with books. So I gave her a copy of my book and said, maybe if you run into them, you could give it to them. A couple of weeks later, I was driving home from our friendship center. I was listening to CBC, and I was pulling into the Fairfield Plaza to get groceries. And the announcer says, so today we have our BC book reviewer with us, Nikki Tate. And what are you reviewing for us, Nikki? Now I'm finding a parking spot. And she says, oh, I'm reviewing local author Monique Gray Smith. And my hands start to shake on the wheel, quickly find a spot. And she gave it a beautiful review. That neighbor who happened to do something with books was the BC book reviewer for CBC. Unbeknownst to me, she also sent that book along to a publisher called Sonarnist Press. And that's how my first published novel, Tilly, A Story of Hope and Resilience, came into the world. And it really is a book that is a gentle door opener, a gentle window opener for some people to begin to understand the truth of this place we call Canada, some of the legislations and policies that have impacted us for generations as Indigenous people, that may still be impacting some of the families you serve, and the legislations and policies that have most definitely impacted our relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. And in it really is the teachings of love is medicine. And so I want to read you a very short piece from the beginning of the book that really outlines this teaching that love is medicine. In this reading, I reference party lines. So some of you joining us will remember the old telephone party lines. But if it's a concept that might be new to you, let me help you understand it. So years ago in communities, there would have been one phone line in. And sure, many people had a phone in their home on the wall, or my mom had a gossip bench. That's where our phone sat. It wasn't like today, where they're tucked in our bras or our back pockets. But what happened was, if I was on the phone, say I was on the phone with Adrienne, and Catherine picked up the phone, then Adrienne and I would hear that click, and we would know somebody else was on the line. But there were clever people who knew that when you lifted up the dial, if you kept that button down and then slowly lifted the button, we might not hear the click. And then the whole conversation could be listened to. I think actually, like, that was the first form of social media. We were ahead of our time. So that's the reference to Party Line in this short reading. During her visits, Grandma Tilly taught me about being generous, telling the truth, and always treating other people with dignity and respect. Every night after dinner, she and I would sit outside, and she'd pull out her pipe bag and load her pipe for her evening smoke. Come here, little Tilly, gather under my wing and let's talk about the day. With me tucked up close to her, we'd review our escapades, and she'd ask me, what did you learn today? And what was the best part? I missed her so much when she'd gone home, but Grandma Tilly made a point of staying in touch by phone. She was on a party line in her community, and it was common to be on a call with her and have someone cut in. Who is on the line? The person would ask. It's Tilly, and I'm on little Tilly, and we gonna be a while. Once when I called her to talk about some things I was upset about at school, she told me, what you gotta remember, Tilly, is that everyone's born with love in their hearts. Sometimes life takes that away, but we're all born with it. So whenever you enter a room, in your imagination, fill it with love and make enough room for everyone else to fill that room too. That, my girl, is when good things happen. I always felt better after my talks with Grandma Tilly. Her teachings, words, and sayings were like medicine to me. So I read that short piece as the work each of you do is absolutely relevant and important in being a conduit for love and helping those who you serve and those who you care for, who serve families and children, to be conduits of love. That we know the neuroscience of love is that when people feel love, that cortisol in their brain, that stress hormone in their brain that has been so prolific in society for these last couple of years and is still very present, that stress hormone goes down and oxytocin and dopamine go up. Same with when we are kind. And so oxytocin and dopamine are often known as the love hormones. And part of what they do is they create an openness, often unconsciously, for us to bond and to connect and to feel a part of. And when we think of this time we're living in and the children and the families you serve, the importance of feeling part of feeling belonging, of feeling connection, I'm not sure if there's been a more important time, at least not in my lived experience in my lifetime. And so to encourage you to continue, because I know many of you already do, that this is the way you walk the world, to be a conduit for love, to share the light and the love in your heart with those who you serve, because some of them may not be having a very gentle time. And the love that they might feel from you will just lift them a little bit. And when we are lifted, we can make different decisions. We can ask different questions. We might have energy to fill out some paperwork that has to be filled out. We might have energy to go see somebody we need to go see in order for the next step in our lives. So I invite you, as I bounce here into the sharing of the screen, to remember that love is a form of medicine, and that our world right now, those children and the families you serve, maybe yourself, maybe your own family, we need a lot of love. So to be mindful again of the questions you ask of yourself and those you serve, to be mindful of what do you read, what do you listen to, what do you watch, like really what are you filling your spirit with, so that you can be as full to be able to contribute in the best way possible. Because part of how we contribute is the gifts that we've been blessed with, right? That's what that woman saw so beautifully at the beginning when she said to me, I look forward to reading your book one day. She was the first person who ever said that. When I think back, there were a lot of high school teachers who said that to me, but not like that. Monique, that's enough storytelling, out to the hall. I spent a lot of time in high school in the hallway because I'd be telling stories in class. And each of us have been blessed with gifts. When I was about a year and a half sober, I went to Round Lake Treatment Center, and I had the incredible privilege to work with Elder Lee Brown. And after I received my traditional name and ceremony, Mistikwaskigos, we went up on the mountain, and he asked me like if I understood when Uncle Malvin had sort of teased me about my name. We didn't give you big drum, right? Like I'm like 5'1" on a really good day. He said, we gave you little drum, because part of the gifts you've been blessed with is to remind people of their heartbeat. And when we think of the families we serve, when we think of our own families and the children today, when all of us are in our mom's tummy and our ears are developing, the very first sound those ears hear is that double beat of the mother's heart. And so to think about, that each of us have our own gifts. And as Dr. Lee Brown said to me that day, he said, the old people say there's no two people walking the planet at the same time who have the same bundle of gifts. He said, that's why we're all special and important. And he wasn't saying it from a place of ego or bravado, but that we've all come with contributions to make. And so I invite you to think about, how do you use your gifts and your dreams for good? How do you do that? So for me, I write books. That's one of the ways. I feel very gifted for books to just simply come, not simply, sometimes it's a lot of work, like Speaking Our Truth was a whole lot of work. And still today, some therapy after writing that book. And Tilly and the Crazy Eights that was also mentioned. These are the books that are available that are really about love as medicine and about helping children and young people, families, and all of us as adults engage in social and emotional literacy and learning without it being explicit, but reminding us of the importance of our feelings, of our emotions, and how do we navigate the world in a good way, holding those up. And these two are coming in the fall, a new children's book with Orca Book Publishers called I Hope, illustrated by the incredible Gabrielle Grimard. I'm going to read that book to you at the very end of our visit. And then, as was said by Catherine, I'm actually right now, I can even show you some of them as I sit here, working on the very final edit pages of the young adult adaptation of Braiding Sweetgrass, which will be for ages 9 and up. And I think it's sort of like Speaking Our Truth, that there'll be a lot of entry points for individuals to read Braiding Sweetgrass in a different way, with the incredible illustrations by Nicole Neidhart. She was visiting a couple weeks ago and she was working on an illustration on the plane, and she said to me, it started to breathe. So that tells you about the exquisiteness of how she's helping to bring this beautiful, I think Braiding Sweetgrass is actually a sacred text, to life. And so this is a little glimpse at one of the chapters, and helps you kind of understand how when we are helping to raise up children and sometimes their families. I know when I was, I think specifically grades 7, 8, and 9, those supports that my mom accessed and that helped to care for us did help to raise me and my family up. And so books like Braiding Sweetgrass help the reader and those caring for them to understand the importance of Indigenous wisdom, scientific knowledge of the plants. And then I think about it like this. This is a braid of sweetgrass, and I've brought it in some ways closer to that full circle by weaving in social and emotional learning. So this just gives you a sense a little bit about how the book is going to look differently. And when we think about hope and joy. These are emotions that, maybe for some over the last couple of years have been fleeting. And I love this quote, by Robin Wall Kimmerer, the author of Braiding Sweetgrass and Moss and other books. She says, even a wounded world is feeding us. Even a wounded world holds us, giving us moments of wonder and joy. I choose joy over despair, not because I have my head in the sand, but because joy is what the earth gives me daily, and I must return the gift. So my invitation to you is to think about, how are you returning the gift of joy? How are you sharing that? And this beautiful word of hope. And in these times, I'll be really honest with you, some days over the last, especially few months, I had COVID in January, and it was really very difficult. I still feel the lingering effects. And there were days when, hope was kind of like in the cuticle of my pinky toe. But we have to have hope. Otherwise, we're defeated before we even begin. And there are some families you serve where there have been people who have not had hope for them. And so they will feel, if you have hope and possibility for the child, for their family, for the young person, those of us, all of us, I think, can feel that when we're with people who have that for us. And it doesn't mean that they don't hold us as able to navigate our own lives, but we all need people in our lives who have hope for us, who dream about our possibility. And when we think about hope, it's really believing that the future will be better than the present and having the self-determination to make it so. I know in the Western world, often people use the word agency, having the agency to do it so. But I like the word self-determination, because it's really about who and how I think I can be in the world. And just like that woman at UVic, when she said, I look forward to reading your book one day, she helped change my perception of who and how I could be in the world. She helped lift up my own sense of self-determination. And it took a long time for any change to happen. But the seed got planted. And there are families you work with today, children, young people, co-workers, who need you to be beacons of hope for them. And the beauty of this is that we are in reciprocal relationships. So today you might be the beacon of hope. And tomorrow you might be the individual who needs a beacon of hope. But when we remember we are in reciprocal relationships, we are giving and we are receiving. We are giving and we are receiving. When we give and give and give too much, that's sometimes when we feel a little, what people might say, burnt out or exhausted, or hope might be almost diminished. That's why we must also be able to receive. And when we think about hope, it depends on our value system. How have we been raised? And in some ways comes back to those questions we ask ourselves again. Well, what do we value? Who do we value? What worldview do we value? How do we value ourselves? Have the adults in our lives valued us? Have the adults in our lives also role modeled how to value themselves, how to value the earth, how to value all living beings, how to value the water? And as we are embarking in these times, how to value the air. So what are our values? For me, one of them, when we would go out always as kids and we'd be harvesting wood for the fire, for the season, but also my dad always sewed cords of wood out of our backyard. We never took it all, right? That's one of our teachings. You never take it all, you always leave some. In the book I showed you earlier, My Heart Fills with Happiness by the incredible illustrator Julie Flett. She has an illustration in there. The words are, my heart fills with happiness when I hold the hand of someone I love. And in that illustration, she's shown an adult and a child holding hands, picking sage. And she's shown the sage that is left on the bush and the little bit of sage in their hands. So it helps us to understand what are our values, and our hope depends so much on that. And the language we use really shows our values. So, for example, our identity, the word I am. It's sort of like how I choose to use self-determination instead of agency. Self-determination, even sometimes I'll ask myself, am I feeling self-determined? No. So what do I need to do? What do I need to shift? What prayers might I need to do? Do I need to go to the forest? Do I need to go to the ocean? Do I need to go visit an elder, an auntie? What do I need to do to shift who and how I think I can be in the world? And so much of it follows these words, I am. And you know, a few years ago, my sister and my mom and I went to see Oprah in Seattle. And she said something so profound that I think about often. She said, whatever follows I am is sure to come and find me. So to be really careful about the language we use to describe ourselves, and to support children and families, to think about what is the language they use to describe themselves, their situation, their possibilities. And some of that will be rooted in fear, and some will be in possibility. And when our fear is more than our possibility, we have very limited hope. That's why we have to always have possibility and pleasure. It's like, what am I excited about? What is new for me? I went to see my son in Minnesota. He's going to college and playing baseball there, and he was having a very, very difficult time a couple of weeks ago, pardon me. And so I went to visit him, and he's supposed to go to Europe on a baseball trip with a Canadian baseball team. And he was thinking he wasn't going to go. His pitching wasn't going well, and he was just pretty defeated. And I think he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to contribute to the team. And so I asked him, like, can I give you some feedback? Are you open to some feedback? He's like, okay, mama. And so I said, the only time I've seen you really light up is when you talk about going to Europe. It's like, oh, and his whole body began to change, because we have to think about what gives us pleasure. What gives us that? Because in that are all these seeds for hope. And so to ask that of the children and families you work with, and that you support and that you serve, you know, what brings them joy? What brings them happiness? What, all these questions. And for many, like, where do you love to go outside? What park do you like to go to? Where has the best swing set? You know, these places, these ways of being that bring us pleasure, help for the hope to unfold. And I've talked about self-determination already, who and how I think I can be in the world. And some of our ability to be self-determined, to be able to see possibility, means we have to care for ourselves. And that's different than self-care. Nourishing our spirit is different than self-care. Like when I think about self-care, like last night I went for a long meandering walk in my neighborhood. That's self-care. But when I need to nourish my spirit, I go to the forest, or I go walk along the ocean, because being in the land and on the land that way changes me. And the neurobiology of it is that when we're in the forest, that first inch and a half of the forest floor, it's called humus. Same when we go to the park with our children, when you take children and families to the park, the grass, that first inch and a half is called humus. And when we smell it, it lowers the cortisol, again, that stress hormone, and increases the oxytocin, the love hormone. That's why when you go, if you're able to go for a walk in the park, under the trees, even in your neighborhood, if there's lots of trees, if you go down to the ocean, if you go into the forest, if you have a lot of plants in your house or on your balcony and you smell the earth, you feel better. And so how do we nourish our spirits so that we can be as present with children and families as possible, that we can make sure that we're holding up their dignity, their pride, who they are, their gifts, the bundle of gifts they come in with. And in many ways, when I feel my spirit is nourished, I have hope. And so I'm going to bounce in now and share with you this new book that's coming out September 9th, I think it's released, with Orca Book Publishers. So you can go on and pre-order or ask your local bookstore to pre-order. Again, it's called I Hope. So just as we come to close, I offer a thanksgiving to each of you for your important contributions to the wellness of our world, of this beautiful place we call British Columbia, of the communities that you work in the lives of the children's and families and the staff who you also contribute with. Much gratitude for the good medicine of love and kindness and joy and hope that you bring. Matakiwas, all my relations, thank you.
Thank you so much, Monique. It was just what a treat to listen to you. And I do want to just let our audience know that you have not accepted any remuneration for today's event. We just want to encourage people to go and pre-order and buy the book. You can reach for the Massey Books folks who are just so wonderful. They do so much good work in the community. They've got ties to Indigenous community members. That's a great place to go, or to some of the other small independent booksellers. Thank you for your beautiful words of wisdom and for your generosity with your time and your heart today. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Please check out the chat. People are reaching for you in the way that they can by popping words into the chat. So very appreciative. And for those of you who haven't yet read Robin Wall Kimmemer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass, it's incredible. And that this is going to be turned into a young adult book with the help of Monique and a wonderful illustrator. Just such a bonus. So you should, as you're going and making your orders, maybe think about that one too. That's coming out in the fall as well. Thank you very much, Monique. Nice to have you. Hands up, of course. Thank you so much. All right, so we'll carry right along now, and it's so nice to be able to welcome Dylan Falconer. Dylan is on the First Call board, of course, and you will know him from the good work that he does all the time, and also for presence at some of the other First Call events. And I'm going to hand over to you, Dylan, to give folks a little bit of a reminder of the work yet to be done.
Thanks, Catherine. First, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you today from the traditional and unceded territories of the Semiahmoo, Katzie, and Kwantlen First Nations. And as mentioned, I invite all of you to be aware of the history and stories of the land you're on right now. First of all, thanks, Monique. I can't think of a better time for your message and stories and inspiration, and for all of us to hear your words and the responsibility we have in the work we do. And thanks to everybody earlier for sharing Catherine Ludgate's stories and the inspiration she provided to all of you, and the legacy she left behind, and the responsibility of the work we have to continue doing going forward. Anyways, First Call made the leap this past year from being a coalition reliant on a parent organization to become a nonprofit society. We are grateful to Van City Community Foundation for the 7 years we were with them and their continued support as we apply for charitable status. Making this shift, of course, means we've incurred some extra costs for setting up our independent operations. But as we work through this transition period, we remain focused on our important advocacy work. Especially as we come out of the pandemic, we know there is a huge need for our united voice to be strong and effective in advocating for the care, protection, and the supports our children and youth need to thrive. As a manager of frontline workers, I know the work continues to be more important than ever, and we need as many people to do and give what they can to see the change we all believe in. Your generosity and support is very much appreciated at this time, and thank you for working with us to make this work possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dylan. And thanks to everyone who has joined us today. I do want to thank some of the elected officials who have taken time to join us at this event. We've been very fortunate over the years. There we go. I think it's starting again. Okay. I'm not sure we're up and running yet, but I'm going to just proceed as though we are and hope that that is the case. But I do want to acknowledge that we've had a number of people who are elected officials joining us over the years and really be sort of stalwart supporters of the advocacy and the hard work that's being done across communities by members of the First Call Coalition. So I'd like to acknowledge Minister Whiteside, Minister Simons, Minister Chen, and Minister Dean. The MLA and Parliamentary Secretary Nikki Sharma as well, and just so many others of you whose names I recognize from the work that you're doing out and about in communities. These are difficult times that we're living through, and it's just really so much appreciated that you work on behalf of the citizens and the newcomers and the people who have been on these lands forever to make things better. So thank you very much for continuing to support. Fundraising and doing this work is expensive, and it requires ongoing fundraising. This has been a very challenging year for First Call and other small agencies. So I really want to just wave the flag a little bit. And if there's anything you could do financially to contribute or maybe volunteer, there's a big fundraising goal. We're very close, but we do want to reach our target. So if there's any opportunity for you to donate, firstcallbc.org/donate. We'd love to see some more money flow in and fill those coffers right up so we can hit that $12,000 goal. I want to thank all of the people who are working today and are not able to be here to join us for this special event, to take on these words and listen to Monique, to think about the way that friendships and the collective has come together to recognize Catherine Ludgate. Catherine Ludgate, I keep saying love, isn't that interesting? She was a Catherine Ludgate. She opened those floods of love and showed it in so many different ways. And her name is Catherine Ludgate. So thank you to family members and supporters and those of you who have come together to do this. Thank you very much for doing the work that you do every day. The invisible work, the hard work, the necessary work that keeps children and families safe and safer each and every day. We hope to see you in person all together next year, eating butter chicken down the way here on Fraser Street. I hope you have a safe day. I hope you can find a way to have joy and love in your lives, and make sure to always have a kind word and look out for each other. Thank you again for the privilege. And thank you so much to all of the organizers who work behind the scenes, Barbara, Alicia, and everyone else. You know who you are. And I thank you so very much for this opportunity. Take good care.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I was trying to figure out how to put it in the chat. I couldn't figure out. Anyway, just want to say thank you so much. And Monique, that was just so powerful.
It was gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I was trying to take notes and then thinking, oh, okay, just get everybody to make sure to go out and buy those books.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a beautiful message in the chat from Donna.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Lots of thank yous.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, that was really, really powerful. And Jonathan Falley's tribute was very, very powerful too.
It was.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah.
Way to go, Barb. And good hair to boot. Whoop, whoop,
whoop. Thank you, Dylan. That was really nice too. I'm glad you made it your own.
Perfect.
I don't know. Dylan. That's nice of you to say that. I just do it again. I find my way through it.
Great job. That was the best. Yeah.
Yeah. These aren't my strengths. My strengths are talking to, doing the work and yeah. So
I don't know. I thought you were pretty strong.
I thought so too. Yeah.
But I love those. I totally want to get those books for my own kids, and you know what? I mean, obviously our program, but I just think of my own kids and their schools reading those books. I really loved it. So
Yeah,
yeah, really, so much of that hit me. Like I almost forgot I was like here working on it because as I told you, like when I was in Mexico, I loved just walking on the beach in my bare feet, and how I thought it was so therapeutic for me, and walk through the trail. So it really, yeah, just great
Beautiful.
great message for right
Yeah.
now. So
Thank you, Monique.
yeah. And we will be buying a bunch of, we'll do a pre-order at Massey Books of a bunch so that we can so we can give them to agencies or groups to distribute a bit. I mean, we'll have to figure out how many we can afford, but I definitely, we want to be able to do that in honor of her time and amazing work.
That's a great idea. I wonder if there's I wonder if Massey would, wonder if they put a little note out and talk about the contribution to like make that community link for folks. I bet they would.
Probably, yeah. We know them a bit because we just certified them as living wage employers.
Yeah, so that might be.
Yeah, we could see if they would. Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing they must do promotion to books they order anyway. I don't know how bookstores work, but yeah.
They do, and they're such a great little bookstore, and they need help. Yeah. So Alicia, thanks for the text. I was asking Alicia to text me because I've got these 3 screens. I've got my neighbor's phone and my.
Well done. She did very
Jesus.
well for a last minute juggling. Well done.
Oh, yeah.
I have to run over with a bottle of something this afternoon and say, thank you, Julian.
Yeah.
It was so funny. Everything just went down. And it's me and the 2 neighbors this way. We're out and he has, but this was his idea. So anyway.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
That's something.
One of those mornings. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Bye.
Catherine.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Were
Yeah,
your
that
ears
was-
ringing, Monique?
I was here. I was just petting my cat. I was getting a little love.
Ah.
Nice. Good role
And you were-
modeling again.
You're getting a lot of love from this end.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the privilege of being part of today.
Oh, you
Yeah.
contributed so
So
much.
beautiful. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.
I just finally, I ordered your first book, Tilly. I'd read Tilly and the Crazy Eights and a bunch of the other ones, and I have them, but I didn't have that one. I missed that one. So I ordered it and it arrived 2 days ago. So
Oh, awesome.
this weekend I get to read it. Yeah.
Enjoy.
Yeah. Hey, Monique, too, I wanted to, well, I guess share, I have 3 young kids, and I'm very inspired by the generation. And like, for instance, you know, the elementary school, they send out the newsletter at the week, and every time they have a new call to action every week on the newsletter, and just really inspired for the young generation where they're going to take us. So,
Oh, I
and
know, right?
I just think of your books, and yeah, I was just thinking of my kids and their schools reading your books. So really, thank you for your words and what you're doing, and getting to as many people as we can. So it was nice to be here and listen to you for the last little while. So
I had my camera in off, but I heard you earlier, Dylan, saying just how much you were looking forward to going home and having movie night, and cherish that. Yes, I'm going to get teary because I remember those nights so much. And my kids loved this movie called Clifford. Not Clifford the Big Red Dog, but it was about Clifford. It was this Great Dane who lived in, yeah, you're nodding, Captain, lived in probably maybe late 90s, early 2000s. Oh, it's so good.
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And the
track
other
it
one,
down.
depending how old your children are also too, is The Hotel for Dogs.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
also very good.
And they're all asking for dogs too, by the way.
Maybe not then.
No, they're great. It's great times right now. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, enjoy them.
Yeah.
All
Thank you.
right. Happy
Thanks,
Friday
everybody.
afternoon.
You too. Thank you.
Be well.
Hey,
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
thank you.
Thanks, Dylan.
Bye-bye.
Catherine.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks,
Good to meet
Barbara.
you.
Nice to meet you too. Bye, Alicia. I hope you feel better. Barb said you weren't feeling well.
Yeah, it's been a hard time.
Do you want me to make some soup?
No,
Is that
that's okay.
better?
Thanks.
You sure?
Yeah, that's great. We'll talk sometime soon.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
Hmm.
Okay, I see there's a few people still left as attendees, so
Ah, okay. Oh, yeah, there are, yeah.
yeah. All right, well, I will wrap this up and end our recording.
Yeah,